Okay, we're going to make a gao, a syrup, using xiāng and molasses. Usually syrups are made with honey, but I think molasses is good for blood and xiāng is for blood, and they go well together. This is something I've made before. So what you need is the molasses, and this jar says that it's 12 ounces. We're going to need half that amount, 6 ounces of xiāng in order to make the syrup. So I've got in the measuring cup a little bit more than 6 ounces. I've got 10 or 11 ounces of water because the herbs will absorb some of the liquid. And so basically what I'm going to do is, instead of doing it on the stove top, I'm going to do it in the Instant Pot because I just really like my Instant Pot, but you could cook this on the stove top. However, first we're going to soak the herbs for a while to fully absorb the liquid because we need a very, very, very condensed, strong decoction. The original recipe for xiāng actually tells you to break it into small pieces. Not to use decocting slices, like slices of dāng and so forth, but to break them into small pieces. That makes more surface area, and that will also help to make a more condensed decoction. So I'm going to take a random amount of xiāng. There. Okay, here we go. Putting a lot in because we want this to be condensed. I can add more if I need to. Let's see how this looks when we put the water on it. Well, I think that looks fairly good. I think that will make it fairly strong. So I'm going to let that soak for a while. Sorry, my other Instant Pot is going off with my breakfast in it. So I'm going to put the lid on and let it soak for a while. And after that, we'll go on to the next step of cooking it in the Instant Pot. Okay, we're ready to cook it. It's soaked. The xiāng has soaked for a while. You can see it's kind of, the herbs have swollen up a little bit. The water has changed color. So because I'm making a small quantity, I'm not just going to cook it directly in the inner pot of the Instant Pot, but I'm going to steam it because you need a certain amount of liquid in the Instant Pot for it to work. So first I put the trivet in, and then I pour some water in the bottom. And then I can put the Pyrex bowl with the herbs in, and the lid. Sometimes it's hard to get the lid on. Let's see. There, got it. Okay, make sure that the vent is sealed so that pressure can build up. And then I'm going to cook it on the soup setting. That has 45 minutes. I can try to adjust that, but I think it'll do for now. I can always give it more time if I decide it's not cooked enough. So we'll come back after it's cooked and see how it is. Okay, after cooking for 45 minutes, then I let the pressure release naturally. In other words, I didn't open the vent to let the steam off. That took about 43 minutes. And now we're ready to take it out and see how it is. I can always put it back in if I think it needs more time. So let's see if I can do this without getting too much in the way of the camera. Okay, I'm gonna decide this is good enough, so the next thing is to strain it. Okay, so it's straining. It's still fairly hot. I need 6 ounces of it, almost a cup. So we're gonna strain and see how much I do have. Okay, I have a cup. So I have 2 ounces too much. So I can either make it a weaker decoction, make it a weaker syrup, or I could pour off 2 ounces to make it the proper amount, or I could boil it down a little more and condense it further. Okay, I'm gonna boil it down a little, make it a little more condensed. Don't have to do this, but I'd like to make the gao as strong as possible, so. It's starting to boil now. Just a little bit, you can see. So I'm going to stir. You want to evaporate some of the liquid, but you don't really want this to overboil either. So we're just trying to condense it and evaporate a little bit off. Okay, I've got 6 ounces now. That's the amount, so I can combine that with the 12 ounces of molasses and then cook it back down. 6 plus 12 is 18, and then cook it back down to 12. So basically, I'm going to evaporate all of the water out of the molasses water mixture, and then the herbalness will be left inside the molasses. Okay, I just poured the 12 ounces of molasses into the pot, and I rinsed out the jar with the liquid, which is still warm, the decoction of Si Wu Gāo, the 6 ounces. And there's still some coming out, so I'll let the last bit drip out. Most gao were traditionally made with honey. They didn't have molasses in China. At least it wasn't a common thing in China. And they made it with honey, but I know a lot of you object to heating honey, which is what we're going to have to do, is to cook this down to evaporate all the water out so that the herbal nature is left in the molasses. And so that's about as much as I'm going to get. Let's start heating it. Okay, so we don't want to overdo the heat, but we do want to cook down and evaporate and heat it. So, let's turn this down a little, and then I'm going to keep stirring, okay, and letting it evaporate. Okay, I think it's done. We can check on the spoon, and it's very much lower than it was. The level on the spoon, I don't know if you can see, it's very much lower than it was at first, so I think I've probably simmered it down enough. It was about a half hour. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off. And I'll let it cool for a while before I put it in the bottle, so I don't risk cracking the jar. Okay, so that's basically it. I could put it back in its original bottle. Sometimes I do, but this time I used a different one. And that's how you make a syrup. Okay, let's try some of our gao. One of the most common ways of taking it is putting a spoonful of it in a cup and then pouring hot water on it, mixing it, and drinking it like a beverage. So let's try. Of course, I spilled some, but I'm a messy person. That's the way it is. That's it. That's how you make a gao. That's Si Wu Gāo.